going to ask you, Mr. Weiss, to start with this. Drop your name, email address. Good evening, everyone. Welcome. First of all, a special thank you and hakaras hatov to DNG, especially to Rabbi Fox and to Dr. Dobkin. Dr. Dave, thank you for the arrangements. Welcome, everyone. We are very excited to kick off the new year, as this is our first significant program, major program of 5779, and it's part of our general Midwest Center for Jewish Learning, our series of opportunities that we are providing, part of the Torah Mitzion Kollel orbit, focused here on the North Shore, and we're glad that you are all joining us tonight. We have a very special evening, and the plan is going to be the following. We're going to have kind of a conversation for the first part of the evening, then we're going to break up into two separate sessions, and then we're going to come back for a wrap-up. So to get us started, I figured the best way to introduce our presenters is actually to have them introduce themselves in the context of one of the questions that we're going to focus on tonight, because the theme tonight is that of relationships and renewing relationships, because this is the season, this high holiday season, is the time when often we are thinking, and we should be thinking, about the different relationships in our lives. So maybe each of you can talk a little bit about why you're here, what your kind of professional perspective on relationships is, and how your clinical work reflects on what is a relationship. So we're going to start with Rabbi Josh Marder, and then we're going to pass it along to Dr. Mara Tessler Stein. Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself for everyone who hasn't met you yet?
So I'm Josh Marder, and I'm here because an opportunity to be with Rabbi Reuven and Dr. Mara Tessler Stein is an opportunity that I don't want to miss. And so it really is an honor and a pleasure to be here with them and here at DNG and with all of you. The MCJL does fantastic programs, and it's really something special to be a part of that. So thank you. My work I work almost exclusively with couples. I do couples therapy. I do supervise a number of psychologists and therapists in couples therapy. I run a monthly consultation group for couples, and so that is kind of my focal point. And without going into the details of a beautiful story of how I got there, at this point I feel it's really an opportunity to help people have a whole sense of self. That what we are learning now through research and through science is that our sense of self is dependent on relationship with other. And that profound experience comes through the relationship of, especially through marriage, but through all of our relationships. And so that's really what I try to focus on and build with people, is their sense of togetherness and self. And that's what I hope we can touch on together here with these great pillars of our community and their work that they do.
Thank you.
My name is Mara Stein, and I'm a clinical psychologist in private practice. And my reasons for being here are very similar. I really enjoy these kinds of conversations. I think they're really rich. In the work that I do as a therapist, I work actually with couples and families, but also with individuals. And while I do quite a bit of couples therapy, and I'm very attachment focused in my work, I would say that fundamentally I'm a developmentalist, in the sense that I'm always looking at how do people grow, and how do we get stuck, and how do we remobilize when we get stuck, whether it's in relationship or on an individual basis. And so over the course of my development, professionally and personally, I've also become a trauma therapist, treating quite a bit of all sorts of trauma, both within and outside of families. So, tonight as we talk about, what is it that helps us to enrich and deepen and strengthen the bonds between us, whether they be familial or friendships or otherwise, or spiritual. Those are the factors that I always have in mind, the ingredients, as it were.
So maybe start us off by reflecting a little bit for us and with us about some indicators. What is an indicator of a healthy relationship, and what is an indicator of a relationship that's not in a healthy place? What would you say are some good ways for us to think about that?
I mean, I always start with a felt sense of safety. A sense of, am I safe with you? Is there room for me here with you in this relationship? Can I trust that I'm seen? Can I trust that what you see matters to you when you look at me? Can I trust that I can be messy with you? Or do I need to be shiny and sparkly all the time? And so in situations, and we all feel vulnerable at times, that's normal, it's human. In situations where I see people talking about their partners, their friends, their family members, with a sense that it's safe, it's okay to kind of go, oh, this is one of those days, it's miserable. And I messed up here and I messed up there, versus people who have to have everything sort of all tied up in a bow all the time, where they're wary, where they're vigilant. I mean, that might be an initial indicator. And then from there, I'm sure we can talk about, there are some very specific kinds of behaviors actually between people that are indicators of problems. Well, why don't we play a little ping pong here?
Sure, I like ping pong, especially with you, Mara. And I think that that's a fantastic foundational point as well as safety. I would also add that rigidity. If we're in a relationship where it always feels I'm the one who makes the mistake, I'm the one who's always sad, I'm the one who's always needy. However you define that term of needy, it's always me, or it's always you, and there's no flow. There's no flowing. I remember when I was working back at Rabbi Fox's previous establishment in Oakland, and I remember I was working as a school therapist, and I would work with families, and it was the beginning of my work as a therapist, and my supervisor said to me, it's okay if a family has a problem child. That's normal. The challenge is when it's always the same kid. Right? Somebody's going to have a problem at all times. But when it's always this child has a problem, or in our relationship, it's always I'm the one with the problem, or it's always you're the one with the problem. There's never a space where we all have problems, and we all need a space where we can release and share and feel that safety that Dr. Stein is talking about, but where we can really feel that opportunity to be able to experience our full selves. And so if there's rigidity, that's a sign that, that the relationship perhaps is in an unhealthy space. I would just want to add that, and please feel free to pipe in, that unhealthy doesn't mean you need to exit. Right? Unhealthy just means there might be a need for change, for development, for transition in this relationship.
Right. Those nodes, those moments where you hit a bump, they're really opportunities. They're opportunities to slow down, to change direction a little bit, to assess. But it can be very scary when people hit those kinds of bumps. And certainly over the course of a life cycle, a family life cycle, there are some predictable times, when you can imagine, like having a child. Like these different transition times, many of them can be tough.
Yeah.
So a transition time on an individual level can be a stressor on a relationship with somebody else who's not involved in that particular event.
Right, although I would say that if you're talking about a loved one, if you're talking about somebody to whom you're deeply attached, it would be natural to assume, for example, that your spouse, if something, God forbid, is happening with one of your parents or a sibling, medical issue, let's say, which, we get to that stage of life and these things happen, that they would be affected by it, either directly or through your distress. And this is part of what I was alluding to earlier. If I'm distressed, what does that mean to you? Is that an inconvenience? Is that upsetting to you because you want to help me to feel better, or at least be with me through that, and vice versa?
So maybe elaborate on that just a little bit
Sure.
more. What do you mean by that? Meaning, if somebody is going through a distressed time, so in a healthy relationship, so then the other person would be there as a support rather than it's all about me. So if you're having a hard time, now I don't have anybody to
Right.
support
Now, when
me.
is it my turn? When is it my turn to talk about my day? And those feelings are going to come up, but it's more, I think, a matter of how does that get unfolded? How do you end up talking about that with each other? Because one of the things that can happen when we talk about attachment, we talk about connection between people, is do I feel alone? Or do I feel like you've got my back? Do I know that I can count on you? And do you know that you can count on me? And so, that knowing that if I'm going through a hard time, that I know that there's at least one person in the world that I can talk to, who's going to drop what they're doing and listen if I really, really need them to. And that would be my husband, right? So that's what you're striving for. Now, that doesn't mean every minute of every day is going to be like that. That doesn't mean people don't make mistakes. That doesn't mean people don't get it, that this was really serious. This happens all the time. We do this all the time. But then hopefully we reach out again and repair. I didn't get it. I didn't hear you. I didn't realize. I would say a sign of a healthy relationship is when people can each say, God, I'm really sorry. I did not mean to do that. That was not what I intended. And I'm so sorry that this thing that I did really hurt you. Genuinely. Genuine apologies in both directions.
Maybe you might kind of pick up on that, something that I think we can definitely think about and benefit from, the idea of talking and communication. Mm-hmm. So much of relationships is bound up with communication. What are some key indicators of good communication, or some strategies that we can think about to have good communication, to build relationships? Because so much of relationship is built on communication.
Yeah. Every time I see a couple, I always ask them, what are the goals? What would you like out of this work that we're doing? And always, without a doubt, communication is, we want to improve our communication. And what does that mean? Communication, I mean, you both speak English, right? I think. And, but what it usually means is how to communicate feelings. That how am I feeling? And are you seeing that? So for example, to think for a minute, when we're distressed, what does that feel like inside of ourselves? I might feel anxious. I might feel sad. I might feel a heaviness. And what is that? But then how do I communicate that? How do I get that across to this person that I'm talking to? And usually what we'll find is it's not exactly the way that I thought it was happening inside of me. When I'm anxious and distressed, I might come out snappy. I might come out critical. You might even feel attacked when actually I really need you to come close to me. And so when we're talking about learning communication, we're really talking about how can I express what I'm really feeling. I think, as Marder said, to be able to tell someone, tell our loved one that I'm really scared. That's a hard thing to do. And to be able to receive from them then that response, I'm here for you. Because usually I'm really scared sounds more like, just give me some space, or would you get out of my way? Or other language that we won't use in this area. And to be able to get deep down and say, wait a minute, what am I trying to communicate to my loved one? What do I want to receive from them in that experience when I communicate this to them? And being able to then have that ability of expression, have that ability of receiving, that's I think ultimately when we say we want to build our communication. Right? It's not the words, it's not the language, it's the experience of our emotions and being able to put them out there.
I think that's so beautifully said. And from there, as you're talking, I'm thinking, and the first place where it starts is, what am I feeling? What's going on in there? I mean, I think so many times we walk around as disembodied heads. You know, we're all these thoughts, without all that much awareness of anything going on, emotionally, somatically, sensations in the body. So you feel the irritability, let's say, anger, snappiness, impatience, frustration. These are words I hear all the time in early sessions with couples. And people, we get so wound up in that it's there's too much noise very often to hear what's going on underneath. And so it takes slowing down, it takes getting quiet, and sometimes it even takes learning an emotional vocabulary. Because if you haven't had the experiences growing up and into adulthood of people recognizing an emotion in you when you're little, it gets really hard to know what that thing is that you're feeling when your face gets really red and your ears get hot. What is that? So learning to name that stuff, when people say we want to improve our communication, sometimes they don't even know what it is that they're experiencing that they want to share, which is part of what gets frustrating. Because you try to articulate the stuff, and it's about the frustration level, the irritability, but not about the stuff that's really buried underneath, that's really tender, that you don't have the words for.
So maybe let's focus on what are some particular strategies that you have seen that work for people in their development of their relationships, whether it's about communication or identifying the stuff that's going on or finding the words or naming it. What are some things that people do that they find is successful, is working, whether it's in research or in your office? What are you finding?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Should I start?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Go.
I guess the first step is to own, what do I do? To own it. You know, it's a very big deal when a partner is able to look at their spouse and say, when I feel lonely, I get mad. And to be able to own that. That's what I do. I'm not proud of it. I don't like the way I look when I'm mad. I don't like the way I sound. I see that when I get mad, you pull away. And to be able to own it, it kind of diffuses the experience. Especially to be able to turn to a partner and say, wait, I realize you're looking at me and probably all you see is that I'm mad. All you see is that I'm angry. You think that I'm just blasting you and calling you a failure and whatever words that are coming out of my mouth, and that's not, and deep down, I'm feeling lonely. I'm feeling this longing to have you near me, and it's coming out in this protest of a way that I see it's pushing you away. And to just own it. And on the flip side, for the other partner to say, when you get angry at me, I pull away. That's what I do. When I pull away from you, you probably say they're feeling like you're so alone. You're probably right there thinking, he's leaving me emotionally by myself. And I'm in this dark, lonely space by myself. And to be able to own and say, and I realize that. I withdraw from you. I pull away from you. I do that because I'm overwhelmed. I do that because I'm scared. I do that because of all sorts of things going on inside of me. But all you see is me pulling away. And I own it.
So owning it is a strategy. Mm-hmm. For those of us taking mental notes, we got that. Another thought in terms of a strategy.
So it's a really interesting question because you know, my inclination is always to answer this on multiple levels. Because certainly we can talk about what are the things that we do and how we do them that are going to send things down the rabbit hole in a really bad way versus in a better way. I think that when we can get into habits of relating that slow things down, that are softer, that are slower, that are kinder, we're actually more likely to be able to hear the voice inside that will let us say something like, you know what? I know I'm really yelling at you, but it's because I really want to burst into tears. Where you may not even be able to hear that voice. All you feel is that pressure coming up inside you, and it's going to come out in whatever way feels safest, whatever way feels possible in that moment. It doesn't feel too risky. But when you slow down, so for example, when you catch criticism, and instead of criticizing, which is sort of like throwing darts at somebody, you soften and say, this is hard for me. Instead of, you know, what's wrong with you? You never do the dishes. And I was out working late and I came home and you didn't do. Instead of saying, I'm so tired. When I come home, it's really hard to come home and have the kitchen be a mess. I don't know if you knew that. Or when you get that feedback, instead of saying, well, it's because of you, the defensive, not my fault, that kind of thing. Instead of saying that, slowing it down and saying, oh, this is somebody that I love. This is somebody who I'm with for a good reason. I think they're, kind of smart. So if they're telling me something, that's because it's them, actually. Maybe they've got a point. Let me think about that. I could see that. I could see why that's hard. Yeah? And then cultivating more of an attitude of appreciation and gratitude and compassion in the relationship. All of these things soften and slow things down.
So softening things, slowing things down, getting curious about the other person, what's really going on.
And about yourself. Yeah.
And about yourself. Maybe before we wrap up this component, then we're going to break up into two different groups. This is the Aseret Yimei Tshuva, the 10 days of return. We're literally on the cusp of Yom Kippur. So what is a specific, concrete thing that we can do? How can we use this opportunity for the next couple of days? Because a lot of people are going to be texting, do you forgive me? Do you forgive me? Like, there's a lot of that kind of thing going on now. How do we make use of this unique opportunity when oftentimes people are more open to having difficult conversations? What are ways that we can utilize these times in a concrete way?
Can I start this time?
Please, please.
One word: compassion. Cultivate compassion. It's 2 words. Self-compassion and compassion for others. Stay on the assumption. Start with the assumption that the person across from you is a reasonable human being. And that what they've done or why they've done it, there's a reason. It comes from somewhere real. Same for you. Compassion.
Awesome. Kind of going along in that same route, but I would say that to recognize I need you. I need you. Part of what gets me so, whether it be that I get so anxious, or even that it's that I pull away, it's that I need you. I need you. And so to be able to own that, whether it's our parents, whether it's our spouse, whether it's our kids, whether it's our friends, we want them in our lives. We need them in our lives. And sometimes it's the people we want and the need, the people that we love, that we get the most fired up inside. And to own it, I need you. And now when I feel that need of you in my life, when I feel it threatened, I get so anxious, or I run away. I can't handle it. And to be able to acknowledge that need and to share it.
All right. We're going to take an open question or two at the moment. Yes, please.
First of all, I want to thank you for coming tonight. This is such an important topic. In fact, just last week I was talking, we had a Mishmar on Thursday night, a week ago, and I was saying that we need to have something like this, I'm going to request at some point later in the year if we can do a Shabbaton along these lines. And because it's a big issue with our community, and for all communities as well. But one thing that I've heard a lot of is the I part of what an issue means, which obviously, which is very important. The way I look at things a little bit, I like sports analogies. You have a team, and the team is the family unit. And when there's a problem, the family has a problem. So using the example of the dishes, okay, somebody comes home late, dishes aren't done, we have a problem. I'm too tired to do it, you were too tired to do it, what are we going to do about it? Maybe can the kids do it after they dinner? We need to solve this, figure out a way, or it's one way or another, or we're not doing something about it. But looking at things from a team, I guess my question is, instead of owning it, looking at it in terms of when there's an issue like that, the team has an issue, the family has an issue. Dishes are a relatively low issue, but obviously the one person coming home, they're like, oh my God, there's whatever, to them that's a big issue then. Is that something that you can advocate or to discuss how a couple and a family could look at things as a team and how it's up to them to solve it together?
Sure. I think that it's a profound comfort to know that I'm not alone with my issue. The dishes are bothering me, and everyone in the family is going to work together. Even if perhaps my wife doesn't care that the dishes are not done. For her, she would be fine, we'll go to sleep and we'll deal with them tomorrow. But I don't want to go to sleep with the dishes dirty in the sink. They're going to get, how to get crusty and it's not good. So they attract mice, whatever it is, that's right. So I have my issue with it, and I feel that and together, she's not looking and saying, hey man, that's your problem. No, it's a profound comfort to know, even if she says, I can't even stand up, but let's figure this out because we're going to do this together. That's comforting. That experience, to own it together. So in life, there might be challenges that we as individuals feel the greater burden of the challenge, but to have the comfort of others with me are owning it together, that we're going to have a team effort to address this, I think that's a profound comfort.
And part of the sensitivity is that it's a problem to one spouse, it's a problem for us. I may not take that seriously, but part of maturity is if it's a problem to her, yeah, it's an issue.
Well, this is
Does it drop what you're doing and fix it? I don't know, but it's a
Well, it depends on the level it reaches, but that's what we mean by, do you have my back? Right? Dishes is a trivial example. It's just a simple one that we all can relate to, but that's what it means to have, I have your back, you have my back. We are on the same team.
Take it seriously.
And I'll tell you something. In doing couples work and family work, so often people want to get into problem solving and they want to get into how you should say something, how you shouldn't say something. And I'll tell you what's really interesting. When you do that, you can get people to do that in the room. You can get them to change how they talk in the room. And then as soon as you get upset, it's all out the window. What really makes a difference is that when you feel genuinely we are on the same team, the problems get solved. Because it's not a competition. Because we're not adversaries.
You're not blaming.
And you're not blaming. So if we feel like we really are together in this, then we can all strategize, because we can all throw in ideas and nobody's gonna, zing somebody for an idea that isn't, adequate somehow. And that makes all the difference in the world.
That's certainly something I would say we can even talk about in terms of an aspiration. If we say maybe I'm not there today, but our goal is to be on the same team. There was a great tzaddik, one of the most well-known righteous Jews of the last, I don't know how long, Rabbi Reuven, the tzaddik of Yerushalayim. So he once went with his wife to a doctor's appointment, and he said, my wife's foot is hurting us. Because his experience of that relationship was so intense that if it hurt her foot, it hurt him. And that really is a goal that we can set for ourselves. So, like where you started, this is a journey. Everybody's on that journey in a different place, but having that as an aspiration that we can really so identify with somebody else that we can feel that we're on the same team. So even if it's not something that I can personally identify with that particular thing, but if it matters to you, and the halacha reflects this in lots of different ways, how it's not just about sympathy, but it's about empathy and sharing that experience as a team. Any other questions, comments, or observations before we...
Well, sometimes,
Yes.
we work ourselves up to the limit, in such a way that when we come home, we're at our limit, we're exhausted. And I think being part of the team is recognizing that the other person is tired too and there is some housework to be done, so maybe we have to take it into account and realize that we cannot work to the limit. So we have to allow some buffer.
The idea of proactive strategies, what you're pointing out, the idea of proactive strategies, instead of waiting until everything is on fire and then you're at that crisis point, to, Rav Lichtenstein, Zecher Tzadik Levracha, Rabbi Aaron Lichtenstein talks about in this season, he talks about tshuva of the norm and tshuva of crisis. The tshuva of the norm is maintenance. It's doing the daily things to set us up for success, rather than putting us in a mode where we reach that point of crisis because we're, I don't know.
And compassion for each other's situation, for each other's exhaustion. Yeah, we're both wiped out. Whether it's about daily tasks, or whether it's about a difficult situation, or whether it's about one spouse coming home with something really, really terrible from a work setting, or worrying about a child, or, you may not be in sync all the time. That's really normal. And to recognize, whoa, that's scary sometimes, because I'm feeling really scared and you're ready to go to sleep. And that means I'm all alone being scared, for example. So just even being able to say, I'm still here. We're both still here together, even if we're not in sync in that exact moment. We are still on the same team.
All right.
I trust you.
Shall we start now? Dr. Stein, you're going to head down the
Sure.
hall. Okay. Rabbi Marder is going to stay right here. So this session is going to focus here on marriage. Dr. Stein is going to focus more on familial relationships, which is going to be, for those who are heading down, it's right down this